Today is Thursday, April 6th. We'll tell you about the latest destruction from this early spring storm season and what issue keeps coming up in state legislatures involving kids. Also, a rare meeting for members of Congress and another new contender in the 2024 presidential race. Plus, how a major hub for hackers came crashing down. All about a multi-million-dollar plan to fight against Alzheimer's. And the latest pop star topping the charts and making history along the way. Those stories and more news to know coming up. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. Another part of America's heartland is now working to recover from severe storms. A tornado ripped through southeastern Missouri yesterday, about 50 miles south of St. Louis. 5 people died, homes were crushed, and trees were uprooted. Missouri's governor toured the damage yesterday and said President Biden has already promised federal help. Americans are getting a breather from severe weather, though, for the rest of this week and the weekend. There will be some storms, especially in the deep south, but they're not supposed to be severe. There is a disturbing new report out of Maryland this week that we have to tell you about. The state's attorney general says for decades, more than 150 people affiliated with the Catholic Church in Baltimore, including priests, sexually abused more than 600 children. And he says the actual number is likely much higher. This is all based on an investigation that's been happening for years now. It looks into the Baltimore Archdiocese, which is the oldest Roman Catholic diocese in the country. Not only does it go into the allegations of abuse involving kids as young as preschool age, but it also says the people responsible have escaped any kind of accountability. It says church officials often protected the perpetrators while keeping their crimes a secret. The current Baltimore Archbishop responded by apologizing to the abuse survivors and promising that the crimes will no longer be covered up, ignored, or forgotten. The report mostly focuses on the years before 2002, when a Boston Globe investigation into a similar situation in Boston led to revelations all around the country. Since then, the nation's Catholic bishops have agreed on reforms. Still, more cases have been reported, including a few out of Baltimore. Also yesterday, Maryland lawmakers passed a bill to end a statute of limitations that said victims of child sex abuse could not sue after they turned 38. And now the governor says he will sign it into law. So with that, more retroactive lawsuits are expected. Several states passed new laws this week focusing on people who identify as transgender. For example, Arkansas became one of 7 states to ban transgender students from using school bathrooms and locker rooms that are associated with their gender identities. Also this week, Kansas passed a new law that's much more broad. It not only covers bathrooms in schools, but also prisons, jails, domestic violence shelters, and more. It also keeps all transgender people from changing their name or gender on their driver's licenses. Kansas lawmakers also approved a separate bill that keeps transgender athletes from participating in girls' and women's sports. In all those instances, Kansas says for legal purposes, sex means whatever biological sex you were assigned at birth. Also yesterday, governors in Indiana and Idaho signed bills into law that ban what doctors call gender-affirming healthcare for kids and teens. That means healthcare providers will not be allowed to prescribe hormone therapy or puberty blockers to anyone younger than 18. And minors won't be able to get gender-affirming surgeries. Remember, lawmakers in West Virginia and Kentucky passed similar bans last week, too. More than a dozen other states are considering them as well. Both supporters and critics say they're just trying to protect children. Now, some activists have already promised to fight these new laws in court. It was the highest level meeting for a Taiwanese leader on U.S. soil in decades. Taiwan's president met with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and other American lawmakers from both parties in California. President Tsai Ing-wen thanked the U.S. Congress for standing by her country when democracy was under threat. And Speaker McCarthy spoke about the need to speed up weapons deliveries to Taiwan in the face of rising threats from China. But China is pretty upset about it. Even before Tsai and McCarthy met, China threatened countermeasures should the meeting go ahead. And yesterday, the Chinese military sailed an aircraft carrier off the coast of Taiwan for military exercises. The U.S. still recognizes Taiwan as part of China, but it also acknowledges that Taiwan functions separately from the mainland. Now, American officials say they're going to be watching China's response to this latest trip very closely. There's another Democrat ready to challenge President Biden for the White House. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. filed the paperwork yesterday to run for president. He's a descendant of one of the country's most famous political families, the son of former Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy and the nephew of former President John F. Kennedy. RFK Jr. used to be an environmental lawyer, but more recently, he's known as one of the leading voices in the anti-vaccine movement. He even has an anti-vaccine charity called Children's Health Defense. Kennedy joined self-help author and activist Marianne Williamson in the 2024 Democratic field. President Biden has not formally launched a re-election campaign, but he has said many times that he does plan on running for a second term. All right, we have more news for you still coming up, but first, a word from our sponsor. If you're a business owner who does not want to waste time, you'll love Indeed for hiring. With Indeed Instant Match, you can instantly receive a list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. So don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. Yep, all the tools you need on the same platform to help you keep things efficient and easy and still effective. And by the way, according to U.S. Indeed data, candidates you invite to apply through Instant Match are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in search. Indeed knows that when you're doing everything for your company, you cannot afford to overspend on hiring. Visit Indeed.com/newsworthy to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/newsworthy. Indeed.com/newsworthy. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. The U.S. government has a new plan for a massive database to help improve Alzheimer's research. Reuters says it's a $300 million initiative and that the platform will be able to hold long-term health information for about 70 to 90% of the American population. That data will reportedly come from medical records, insurance claims, pharmacies, mobile devices, sensors, and other government agencies. The hope is it could be used as a tool for researchers and allow scientific questions to be answered more quickly than they are with smaller clinical trials now. Plus, it could help identify healthy Americans who are at risk for Alzheimer's, so they could be targeted for future drug trials. It's all going through the National Institute on Aging and is expected to start up next year. The people behind it say it will be secure with restrictions to make sure people's health data stays private. Experts say now is a good time to make it happen. The Alzheimer's Association says more than 6 million Americans are living with the disease, and that number is expected to double in the next 2 decades. One of the world's biggest online criminal marketplaces is no longer available. It was just taken down. Investigators say Genesis Market had login details, IP addresses, and other data from more than 80 million people up for sale. Hackers could go there to buy people's personal information, often for less than $1. And with that, they'd get enough to log into bank and shopping accounts. But this week, the FBI and other law enforcement agencies around the world carried out a series of raids. And they arrested nearly 120 people and seized the Genesis domain. And this is big because the Justice Department says it wasn't just regular people who got their data exposed this way. It also compromised critical infrastructure and all levels of government. So the U.S. Attorney General says this seizure should serve as a warning to other cybercriminals that law enforcement will, quote, find you and bring you to justice. The DOJ also shared a free website where you can see if your information was stolen so you can know whether to change your passwords. We'll post a link to that in today's episode notes. It's one of the largest mergers the gaming industry has ever seen. Savvy Games is buying Scopely. Savvy is part of the Saudi Arabian government's public investment fund. The chairman of the Savvy board is the Saudi crown prince. But the CEO says the goal is to develop gaming on a global scale. Now it's paying $4.9 billion for the mobile games company out of California, Scopely, which is behind games like Marvel Strike Force and Scrabble Go. Scopely CEO says the deal will help his company step up efforts to drive the games industry forward. Over the last 15 months, Savvy has also invested $1 billion in a Swedish gaming group called Embracer. And it's taken more stakes in Nintendo, Electronic Arts, and Take-Two Interactive, some of the biggest names in the business. This year's first major golf tournament kicks off today. Round 1 of the 87th Masters is set to begin from Augusta National Golf Club, bringing together some of golf's biggest stars. Some of the favorites to win this time are Rory McIlroy, Jon Rahm, and last year's Masters champion, Scottie Scheffler. Other big names teeing off today include Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, and Dustin Johnson. They're all competing for the coveted green jacket. The tournament lasts through Sunday. You can watch all of today and tomorrow's action on ESPN. Then it switches over to CBS for the last 2 days of competition. One K-pop superstar is making history without his boy bandmates. BTS member Jimin just came out with his new hit single called Like Crazy. And Billboard says it debuted at #1 of this week's Hot 100 chart. That makes him the first South Korean solo artist to ever hit the top spot. In just its first week, it was streamed 10 million times and downloaded hundreds of thousands of times. Jimin celebrated the record on Instagram, writing, quote, "Love you all." But of course, this isn't the first time he's reached a milestone like this. Before the band took a hiatus, BTS was the first South Korean act to top the Billboard charts in 2020. They ended up having 6 #1 hits, including Dynamite and Butter. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Think to Know Thursday. But first, have you heard of Optimal Living Daily yet? This is a podcast that's always in the top charts for good reason. It's a simple idea, really. The host, Justin, who's an award-winning audiobook narrator, gets permission from the most popular online writers and reads their best articles for you. A little bit like an audiobook, but a short article every day to add some positivity, inspiration, and motivation in your life, and ultimately, more happiness, helping you learn and grow. Check it out and subscribe or follow wherever you listen to podcasts. It's called Optimal Living Daily. Okay, now back to Think to Know Thursday. So the FTC just put out a warning about a new tactic known as AI voice cloning. It's technology that could have some good, interesting uses, but scammers are also taking advantage. So here's how it works. It usually starts with scammers making a fake phone call to you. Once you answer, they record your voice, then put that recording into an AI software that can actually mimic your voice, pitch, accent, and inflections. Even if you don't answer the phone, they could use audio or video that you've posted online. So they apparently only need a few sentences to make this work. Once they have your voice, they can then contact your friends or family, pretending to be you and saying they need money. There have been people who have lost thousands of dollars this way. So the Better Business Bureau suggests come up with a code word to tell your family or group of friends. So if this voice doesn't say that code word, they'll know it's not you. There have been calls to better regulate artificial intelligence, so tools like voice cloning cannot be abused. But supporters say there are actually some good practical uses for this technology. Like some people suffer from conditions that have left them without a voice, and voice cloning could help them speak naturally. It could also be used to make engaging interactive content for online learning courses or video games. And that's just a few examples. So for now, voice cloning is still available to the masses. All right, thank you so much for joining us and listening today. We'll catch you up on more news to know tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.